Hey, this is a very special Double Negative, a photography podcast by Will Malone, with your host, me, the titular Will Malone. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about my project I've been working on, Postcards. Okay, we're out here. We're looking for cart crimes, and I might have found a huge one. This person, whoever did this, needs to go straight to jail. What an obscene crime. They just pushed this cart down a hill. You believe that? Unbelievable. That's a big one. This should be a felony cart crime. But let's skip all the intro pleasantries and just get to the topic at hand. Just straight away. We're not going to plug anything. That's right. I am making postcards now. And, I think postcards are this thing that photographers think is like a little side thing, a fun little thing that you can do. They're pretty easy to print. They're not very expensive. And you can have them on your website as like a little side thing going on, right? I decided to dig deeper. I decided to dig into postcard history. A few weeks ago, I started just looking into postcards, like just the history of them, just curious about like how they all got started. And I was stunned by what I found, which is they were a democratizing event in the photography world, not unlike something like Instagram. And that sounds crazy, right? But in the late 1800s, early 1900s, photographers were shooting tintype. So a lot of photographers had like portrait studios, and that's how, as a photographer, you would make your living, is you would shoot portraits of people, and you would have a lab and a studio, and that was how photographers made money. But then as the early 1900s rolled around and rural post office delivery became a thing, meaning you could get mail if you lived out in the middle of nowhere, people started being interested in postcards. But there were a couple kinds of postcards, and there's a whole underground like collector's world of postcards. Many of you may know somebody who collects postcards. There's a lot of money in it. It's crazy. But there were a couple kinds of postcards. There were printed postcards, like the ones that were maybe mass produced, like one photo was produced multiple times. And then there were real photo cards. And so the real photo cards are interesting because it would be photographers exposing light sensitive paper with a postcard back in a dark room. So they would have to make each one by hand. And those nowadays sought after by collectors. And oftentimes they have a signature or a stamp indicating who the photographer was. Postcards basically overtook a lot of studio photography that was happening. It was just because photo technology was getting easier. It was a great way for people to share documents of the time. I mean, photographers were just going out and taking photos of literally anything and everything. Anything could be a postcard. And that was what fascinated me about postcard photography. Is I think we think that oftentimes postcard photography is just like touristy. It's like scenic landscapes and that kind of thing. And that's largely what postcards are used for now, I feel like. And they were used that way then, but they could literally be anything. They were just sometimes a way to send a photo of your family to somebody else. And what was interesting about it is that the layout of postcards, the thing we think of now as what a postcard is, wasn't always in existence. So originally postcards had like a lot of regulations on them. So the whole back of a postcard had to be where you put the address. And then the photo part had sometimes just like a small little area for you to write correspondence. Well, so if you find a lot of these old postcards that were done before like 1907, the regulation changed in 1907. If you got like a pre-1907 postcard, a lot of the times those have like writing on the photo because there just wasn't room to write anything. It was often just a way to send somebody an image of a house or whatever, or a person, or just anything. Then on March 1st, 1907, regulations were changed to where you could split the back. So one side of the back could have the address and the other side could have your correspondence. And so I just thought that was super cool. And that changed how postcards were used from that point. Just a little change like that, being able to have a bigger space to write a message, completely changed and like made postcards even more popular. And then a lot of postcards, I believe, were printed in Germany, like the mass-produced ones, the ones that weren't real photo cards. They were printed in Germany, and I think that kind of ended around World War I and World War II for obvious reasons. And then postcards were kind of used for like American like propaganda, essentially, like just patriotic messages, American flags, that kind of thing, just to pump people up after the war. And so they were just always, it's like a very democratic way to share images. Again, like right now, the democratic way to share images is Instagram. You know, it's our phones. It's everybody is kind of doing the same thing now as they were back then. And photographers were trying to readjust on how to make their living with the dawn of postcards. And I'm sure many photographers were very upset about postcards. I'm sure many photographers believed that postcards cheapened the photography experience because the way you're supposed to do it is via tintypes and very carefully in a studio. And so all the stuff we go through all the time, just reading about postcards made me realize that we have gone through this time and time again. Like, it just constantly happens with change. You know, film to digital, tintypes, portrait studio to postcards. It's all the same at the end of the day. And postcards dimensions were like 3.5 by 5.5. So I'm going to talk more about my postcards in a second and kind of what I'm after in this project. Postcard, that was kind of the postcard dimension, 3.5 by 5.5. And in today's modern world, that's a little tougher ask to get that exact dimensions because the places that mass produce them, you know, it's easier to mass produce if they only have a couple size templates. So I have yet to find how to make those kind of postcards, but I mean, they could be anything. For instance, I've got this really old one right here that it's like saying something. I don't know what it's really saying. And this one's dated. What's the date on this one? This one's pretty old. It has a 1 cent stamp on it. This one's probably 1907, I think. And yeah, it's got a message from this was North Carolina. But they could just be like, even event photography could be a postcard where they just capture, document an event. And I think that's what's so fascinating is that people think of postcards as one thing. They think of it as, quite honestly, quite frankly, just that, like a landmark, a photo of a landmark. And see, this is a postcard that came out before they like split the back. So it's just an address. And this one is August 17th, 1907. So this must just be a holdover postcard from after the regulation changed. But, you know, a lot of landmark stuff. That's kind of, I think, what we all think about. But there's so many postcards that I've found that are just like a kid with a cat or something, or like just a person, and no identifiers as to what's going on in that. It's just that's it. That's the information. And it was because it was probably meant to be somewhat of a snapshot sent to somebody. Yeah, here's one right here. A man and a dog. And this one's blank. This is like super old school back where this is like the original split back right here. It's just so cool. And so just the more I started digging into postcards, the more I started thinking like, you know, I've been doing these big prints for so long where I do these large custom prints and trying to make them, you know, commercial looking. The Small Town Photo Project was kind of, I've talked about that before, but I was like, there's something so light and simple about just a cheap little photo card. And, you know, I don't know if you've picked this up by now, but I've never really cared heavily about the art world. I've never really cared about putting my work in galleries or that kind of thing. I'm more interested in just interesting ways photography can be expressed in my work. And I think I'm fascinated with the idea of taking something small, something that people don't really think about, and making it and doing something interesting with it, like making it bigger and better than it is, right? So I was focused on photographing small towns that people didn't really think about. And then postcards are like this thing that like everyone takes for granted now and no one really thinks about. And it's something that I feel like could be more valuable to us in this current climate than ever, something that could be more special. And I think a lot of people think of postcards now as something you get at like a national park or whatever. And I think there are still a fair amount of the population that thinks postcards are very cool. Sorry, I'm trying to look for one to show you. I mean, I've got a lot of these like touristy ones here. These are actually my mother-in-law. She actually has quite the collection of them, and she's letting me kind of borrow them while I'm, this one's cool. The Red Room. Yeah, she's letting me kind of go through her stash and take pictures and kind of analyze and check them out. And I've just been fascinated. She's got so many from like the early 1900s. She's got like some OG ones in here. But yeah, it's fascinating. Just, it's the simple thing that over time, like these people are just sending these cards, notes to people. This is just how you communicated. And that was, I mean, now they're like these cool pieces of history. They're documents of the time. And we're documenting the time, I guess. And I think that's the thing I've really noticed a lot about Instagram and the way that Instagram makes us think about photography. And I don't think Instagram is very good at incentivizing documenting our life or surroundings at all. I think we think it does, right? Because there's just a lot of images being made. But I think a lot of the time people are trying to fit in a category of photography. A lot of people are trying to get their photography seen for the sake of getting seen. I think there's very little, I hate this word, I'm sick of this word, but authentic intent in images. A lot of it is like, you kind of have in the back of your head, will people on Instagram like this image? Or if I make this like big and face punching and cool double exposure, will people be into this image? And again, maybe I'm just projecting, but I do think like a lot of like film photography, for instance, is like very derivative. It's like gas stations, old cars. It's like the film medium itself incentivizes shooting things that are old or abandoned or whatever. But those, while, yeah, you're shooting a thing that exists now, you're not really shooting a document of now. You understand? So this is all to get into why I'm doing postcards. Yeah, this is cool. So these are like old church postcards right here. It's like little hymns, little notes. And yeah, they're just postcards with a different kind of like, instead of a photo, it's like a, hymn or something. Just, anyways, all I'm saying, postcards could be used for anything. And I don't think we think of that. So why am I getting into postcards? Well, first, I just went on this deep dive of postcards, and I found all of this interesting history. I found all these books by collectors, just understanding postcards and their role in photography and their role just in culture. And they were this just huge part of culture at the time. And I think they've remained a huge part of culture in just how we think of postcard in our like vernacular. Like we use postcard photography, makes us think up a certain type of image. But okay, so we're not documenting things very well, I believe. I think that there's a lot of things going unnoticed. And I think I was kind of getting at this a little bit in my small town photo project, although that veered off into me not documenting quite as much as making a commercial photo of something that not a lot of people have taken photos of. So I was getting there, but I think I've kind of gotten to I've gotten a little level deeper now, which is that just kind of what I've started to get at in my work over the past few months, where I would go out at night and shoot suburban, boring commercial America. Driving across America is really depressing now because every town has a Target. Every town has a Starbucks. Every town has a Walmart. Every town has a main road with all the same franchise stores as every other town. And towns are America's kind of flattening, where everything is the same. And it almost removes the need to go anywhere unless you're going to like somewhere historic, see the Alamo, or go to, some historic downtown somewhere that's kept up that honestly is usually just breweries and coffee shops and, like a Margaritaville anyway. But it's like America's kind of flattening, right? And as frustrating as that is for many of us, and I'm definitely annoyed by it quite often. I mean, even going to New York City, it's like, You can go to a chain. There's just less to do than there used to be because there's just not as much mom and pop stuff going on. There's not as much small business going on. It's all corporate. But human beings are so weird. Human beings are weird. We're barely holding it together. I don't think people understand how absolutely unhinged we are as a species. And so when you go to like a Target parking lot and you just sit and you just open your eyes to everything around, it'll freak you out. You'll start to notice things that you've never noticed before because we all just go to these places. We go buy groceries here. We go, buy toiletries. I mean, it's just places we go every day, every week to just take care of our basic needs. And we don't really think about them. You don't see photographers running around in a Walmart parking lot trying to document life in modern society. And, back in postcard times, everything was on a main street in a downtown, and you probably would see photographers documenting it. You probably would see a photographer taking a picture of the main street. But you don't see photographers taking pictures of the main streets of corporate franchise America. Even though, in its own way, it is very weird, and it's a document of the present in America in a way that is kind of like, it's upsetting, but it's true. And so in November, when I was like driving around at night taking photos of this stuff, I started just like taking pictures of like abandoned shopping carts around. And I was like, man, these are funny. Like they're everywhere. Some would be leaned up over a curb so they don't roll away. Like the person who put their shopping cart over a curb, they weren't considerate enough to roll it back to the cart return, but they were considerate enough to make sure it wasn't going to roll across the parking lot. So they put the wheels up on a curb. And like each of these abandoned carts kind of make you question like how they got there. What was the reason this person like put this here? Why did they leave it here? Why did they leave it in this position? What were they doing in this area over here? Why is the shopping cart full of Miller Lite cans? It's like it just each time I would stumble upon one, I couldn't stop thinking about like how it got there. And when you start thinking about abandoned shopping carts, they're everywhere. Like they are everywhere. I went down this path and this is where we are. And there's this really weird path down here. And I'm not going too far because it seems like there may be some sort of encampment deeper in here. But you got to see this. Okay, shopping cart. Shopping cart. Shopping cart. I mean, look at this. Look, it's like ancient shopping cart ruins. And the light's terrible, so I don't think my photos are really getting it across. But it just keeps going. And then who knows what the crap is that way. I heard a lot of large rustling, so I don't want to go back there. But it's kind of beautiful in a weird way. It's like ancient American ruins. Abandoned shopping carts are everywhere. Everywhere. Like I started just seeing them places and I couldn't resist. And so I just like, I got to photograph these. And so I was like, well, there's my postcard project right there. So that's right. I have decided to make postcards out of, in the way that postcards were really intended to be made, as a document of America. So that's what I'm doing. Postcards are light. They're fun. They're cheap. They're a way to kind of send just a small message of the present to somebody. And I have all these weird photo project ideas that I kind of like always come up with over time. Sometimes I even start shooting the project, but then I don't really know where to take it. There's these limits with modern photography where you shoot a project, but everything's digital. So you kind of feel like you shoot it and then it just kind of like sits on your hard drive forever. And I don't really like that. I feel like a full project for me is one that I shoot and then do something with, oftentimes in printing. And I feel like some of these weirder ideas I have, like, the shopping cart project or, some of the weird signs I've been finding lately and like I have a huge list of other stuff I'm kind of looking to do. The bathroom thing we talked about, which I'm kind of honing and working on a little bit more, would be perfect for the purpose that postcards were originally intended for, which is a document of society. But also, I want these to be fun. I want these to be kind of unusual. I want them to be kind of like silly. You know, there's a lightness to it. Like I talked about in the shopping cart video I shot the other day, the art world is a lot of ego talk. So there's just a lot of, you know, when you're trying to sell somebody a print, even when I sell like a dentist's office a print or whatever, you kind of have to talk in kind of a fluffy way. You know, you talk about the archival inks and how durable it is and just the preservable, like this will be preserved for all of time. And I use the highest quality Hanemule, whatever. And it's just like, it makes me want to roll my eyes out of my head when I talk about it, but it's also just like boring. Like you're just making it sound cooler than it is. Like no one cares actually like what a photo's printed on as long as it looks good. Really, no customer really cares unless they want bragging rights so they can take that information and brag about it to their friends. Like it's just social capital stuff. It's not like actually valuable. And so with postcards, I like that there's none of that. Like there's nothing like fluffy about a postcard. It is boiled down to the basics. It's you write your note on the back and you send your friend a picture. And so the shopping cart series is kind of my first series of postcards I'm doing. So it's the way I'm going to do it. I've got initially two batches, so they will come in packs of 5. They're on my website now, so you can go check out the link in the description. Go to willmalone.com. You can buy these postcards. They're packs of 5. I have currently I have 2 different packs, so they were 2 different sets of images. And then I've also got just double negative ones that I did. I actually made these a while back and never put them up on the site. So they're a different size than these shopping cart ones, but I need to do something with these. So I also have a pack of just double negative postcards as well. And that's kind of what we're doing to start this project. But I have so many ideas and so many things I want to do with postcards. So I'm becoming a postcard peddler. I am a postcard photographer now. Because the medium of postcards, I feel like just opens up so many possibilities, so many fun possibilities, so many light possibilities, so many ways that I can easily share photos with you guys that you guys could just have and without spending a crap load of money on it. And so this is kind of where a lot of my brain power has been going lately. And it seems silly, I guess, but that's kind of what I like about it. That's what's attracting me to it. And I think it's really fun. I've got some Polaroid postcard ideas that I'm working on. But yeah, you're just going to see a lot of this. You're going to see everything I'm shooting is kind of comes with the goal of being a postcard. I've got a cross-country road trip coming up in a few months. I've got a couple other trips coming up too. And so there's just going to be a lot of fun postcard stuff that I'll be getting to do. And so yeah, this is my first one. Abandoned shopping carts. My first series of postcards is abandoned shopping carts. This one's crazy. It's got a seagull in the parking lot. And what's funny is I printed these postcards and I was super stoked, got my postcard sets ready to go. And then I went out to the store the other day and shot another set of abandoned shopping cart photos that are actually some of my favorites. So there'll be more to come on the shopping cart thing. I can't get enough of that project. It's just too fun. I've got another one that's pretty close to being complete, another project. Actually 2 that are pretty close to being complete. One of them I've been working on since last year, and I'm kind of like noodling around with how to make that just like a punchier, kind of sharper concept. But yeah, postcards. That's my thing now. So you can go to willmalone.com and you can buy the abandoned postcard packs. And they're 5 in a pack, $9.99 per pack. And that's what we're doing now. So I got some fun. I just got a lot of fun ideas. I just want to have fun with this. That's kind of it. I'm just tired of all the seriousness. I'm tired of like beating my head against the wall trying to figure out how to become like a serious and impactful photographer. When really get into photography and when I enjoy photography most is just when I'm having fun. You know, when I shot Polaroids every day last year, it was really out of fun. It wasn't because I had some serious intent. And that's kind of why I'm in it, is I want to have fun, but I also want to provide something. Imagine, some of these postcards, some of these like really old postcards right here are from like 1907. So, I'm not going to do the math right now. That's a long time ago, right? That's a long time ago. Imagine if somebody dug up like this postcard in like 100 years, and they're like, wow, like, what was society back then? Like, what was going on? And that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is like my audience for these postcards are like, 50 to 100 years from now. That's kind of who I'm making them for in a weird way. So I guess they are kind of collector's items is kind of what I'm doing. I am making like art to be collected maybe ultimately, but it is kind of, I just think that's a funny idea. Another couple interesting tidbits about postcards. Number one, I mean, many of you, if you guys have studied photography history, have probably heard, heard about Stephen Shore and how he did postcards of like boring office buildings in Amarillo, Texas, and how he thought the art world would love them. And so he ordered like he went to the biggest postcard printer in America and ordered like 5,000 of each of them. And basically the art world rejected it completely, like didn't care about postcards. And so he didn't sell a single one. And so he just spent all of his road trips just dropping off his postcards in random postcard racks across America, just giving them out, putting them places. And so I thought that was kind of funny. And they were that kind of humor of postcards where they were of very boring things. But even his postcards were very, they fit in the postcard mold, I think. Like a lot of these postcards kind of look like Stephen Shore's postcards. And then the other tidbit, this one's very interesting because I've never heard this before, but Walker Evans, the photographer who would walk around with his camera in his jacket pocket so nobody knew he was taking pictures. He painted his camera black, had his lens sticking out from the buttons of his coat, and he ran a shutter release up his arm, and he would take pictures of people on the subway, and they wouldn't notice he was taking pictures, so he has all these fascinating images of people, looking away and whatever. He, in one of these postcard history books I bought, they make mention that Walker Evans' work was inspired by the style of postcards at the time. To me, that was crazy to think that, much like many people now are developing their style of photography because of what Instagram kind of promotes, that somebody like Walker Evans was inspired by what postcards promoted, like what a good postcard was. Like postcard photography inspired his work. And I find that just so interesting. I've never heard that before. I don't know if that many people know it. I don't even know if it's that true, but this postcard history book brought that up. And I just thought it was, at the very least, tells us a lot about what postcards were at the time, which is they were the prime people's medium of imagery, of getting photography out there, of sharing. And I think that's really cool. So postcards are my new passion. I love them. I can't get enough of looking at these like super old ones, because part of me imagines too, just like, man, like I want my postcards to be old. It's amazing. You go to antique stores and maybe talk to some older people in your life, and they may have a stash of postcards somewhere, and just go look through them, go to an antique store, go check them out. Like they really will kind of open your mind to like what photography used to be and just like what it can be. And it's just cool to see these documents, these handheld documents. Like a lot of the stuff we're even documenting is going to be gone. An EMP could happen, your hard drive's toast. All of this could go. But postcards, I mean, they're going to exist, unless it's like nuclear winter or something, then, but we're all screwed anyway. But, postcards are a very long-lasting thing. They get wedged in somewhere, forgotten for years, and some kid will dig it up and be like, whoa, there's like a shopping cart overlooking a beautiful commercial vista Thanks for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at Will Malone. You can follow my Polaroid and Instant Film Instagram account at Everyday Instant. Go buy some postcards over at willmalone.com. They come in packs of 5. Very exciting. Gonna be way more where that comes from. And yeah, like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you're picking up what I'm putting down. If you're excited about what's to come about postcard photography journey. I will be getting back to some Polaroid stuff. Don't worry. A lot of people have been hitting me up. They miss some of my Polaroid stuff. I have been shooting Polaroids lately. I just haven't talked about it much, just because they've been kind of spur of the moment. But Polaroid stuff will return. Don't worry. We're coming back. I've just been focusing on this postcard thing a lot, and just getting them printed and figuring out logistics behind it. But yeah, really excited about this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.